Hello everybody, I'm Dave Shaw. I'm an Englishman here in Italy. We're in Piemonte here, a beautiful part of northern Italy. We'd like to invite you to come with us on a walk through these woods, these beautiful woodlands, and we're going to look at another couple of habitats too. We're going to look at the River Po. We're also going to have a look at something called the Lanca di San Michele, and we'll explain a little bit later what that is. What we'd like to do is to go through the ABC of birdwatching to give you an idea what this hobby is all about. We are going to be in the company of a great local ecologist, birdwatcher, whose name is Alberto Tamietti, who is a guida parco here in the Parco del Po, in the Po River Park. Okay, let's go and meet Alberto. He's just over here.
Hello, Dave.
Hi, Alberto, how are you? It's been a while. Fantastic. Alberto, look, you are the perfect person. Look, people would like to know about the Parco del Po, what it is, how it was formed, why it's special, and maybe plans for the future. Whatever you can tell us, we are all ears.
Okay, now we explain. Ciao, sono Alberto Tamietti, sono un guardiaparco delle aree protette del Po Piemontese. Ci troviamo nel Bosco del Gerbasso, che è all'interno della zona di speciale di conservazione della Lanca di San Michele. Questo è un bosco che è stato interamente ricreato dal Museo di Storia Naturale di Carmagnola negli anni 90, anche se può avere un aspetto del tutto naturale. In questo momento vediamo queste piante intorno a noi, hanno circa 30-35 anni e sono il primo impianto del Bosco del Gerbasso che oggi occupa un'area di oltre 30 ettari. È stato un grosso intervento del Comune di Carmagnola che adesso ha fatto sì che quest'area diventasse una vera e propria area protetta. Grazie al contributo del Comune di Carmagnola e delle aree protette del Po Piemontese si sono anche fatti degli interventi di rinaturalizzazione delle attività estrattive delle cave che vedremo successivamente, che si trovano dietro quelle siepi, che sono delle attività produttive che vanno a scavare il materiale, la sabbia e la ghiaia all'interno al di sotto dei nostri piedi, perché sotto di noi c'è ghiaia e c'è sabbia, però nel contempo, grazie alla progettazione proposta dalle aree protette, che ormai governano questo territorio dagli anni 90, si è riuscito a ottenere delle aree che a fine dell'attività estrattiva saranno poi delle vere e proprie oasi naturali, costruite con delle logiche di recupero ambientale e anche atte a ospitare poi la fruizione di turisti che vogliono entrare in contatto con la natura, e già si fanno parecchie di queste attività. Le piante che sono state scelte per ricostruire questo bosco sono le essenze tipiche del bosco planiziale, ovvero del bosco che ricopriva tutta l'intera pianura padana circa 2-3 mila anni fa, prima che i romani iniziassero a disboscare per coltivare tutta la pianura padana. Le essenze tipiche del bosco planiziale sono la quercia la farnia, che possiamo vedere qua, e il carpino, che invece è quella pianta con quelle foglie più piccole, il carpino bianco. Poi altre essenze importanti di arboree che troviamo, che sono state impiantate in questo bosco, sono il pioppo bianco, tipico per la colorazione molto chiara e bianca sulla parte inferiore delle foglie e anche della corteccia, i salici bianchi più tipici degli ambienti ricchi d'acqua, quindi che si possono trovare lungo il greto del fiume o lungo le zone umide, come in quella palude che è stata ricostruita qui di fronte, e poi frassini, aceri campestri e aceri di monte. Queste sono le essenze che dominano il bosco planiziale, che sono state reimpiantate e che adesso possiamo vedere in stato di ottima salute in questo bosco. Nel Bosco del Gerbasso le aree protette del Po Piemontese hanno anche costruito alcuni anni fa un capanno di osservazione della fauna e per il ricovero anche dei turisti e della gente che viene a visitarlo, che è servito come punto per la stazione di inanellamento anni fa, ed è il luogo dove fra poco Dave trascorrerà la sua nottata in questo splendido bosco.
Now things are getting really exciting now, because just over here you can hear the cooing of a turtle dove. It's a wonderful sound of summer in the woodlands. We've just heard a cuckoo, which means this place is full of big hairy caterpillars, because cuckoos love eating those. And there's something else. Oh yes, there's a blackbird over there singing, very melodious. But another exciting fact is we're just about to see our accommodation. Now, we've been promised a 5-star hotel by Alberto and the Parco del Po. And I think I understand what he means, because there's no real wall on that one side. It's really, really open. And that's because this is not really for people to live in or even to sleep in. This was a place used by bird ringers for many, many years in the early stages of the growth and the development of this forest. So let's go and have a look at it. Visitors now here are not ringers but members of the public. Young people sometimes come here, have their little parties, but we think they won't be coming here tonight. But we will have visitors. We'll have different visitors. I wonder if we're going to survive those. We'll be having visitors, we'll be having mosquitoes and who knows what else. But we've come prepared. And what a view from here. A fabulous view over this meadow, right looking at those white poplars over there, the oaks over there, as described by Alberto just a moment ago, and the cuckoo. The cuckoo's calling again. What a magical way to start our expedition here. Oh, what a night that was! What a night! I mean, last night was brilliant. There was a concerto of birds singing, incredible volume and intensity. We had blackbirds, there were blackcaps with their very, very energetic song. There were nightingales singing, and then there was a cuckoo that kept on singing practically to nightfall. That was amazing. And you can imagine there were fireflies here illuminating all of these dark, shady places under the vegetation, in the forest, in the heart of the forest, under the trees. It was absolutely brilliant. And I think we just heard, well, I heard a pheasant, of course, I heard that, and I think I just heard the low call of a long-eared owl. A very faint call, not like that of the tawny owl. So absolutely incredible. And then, well, what do? We had something to eat, a little bit of grappa, of course, some digestivo. Now, just to help us to get to sleep. And in fact, the mosquitoes weren't too bad at all. We hardly noticed them. Maybe that's a good thing, but maybe it's a sign of the times. There should be mosquitoes. But anyway, we were all saying, I didn't sleep a wink. I didn't sleep for one single second, but you know, we all heard the others snoring, so we all think that everybody managed to sleep a little bit. So, well, I'm just gonna get my things and then we're ready to go. Oh, this rucksack's heavy this morning. Now here is the River Po, one of Italy's great rivers, and one of the great rivers in Europe. It's a fantastic river, and it starts right up there near Monviso. Monviso is Italy's Kilimanjaro or Fujiyama. And I mean, it's a very imposing mountain. It's like a shark's tooth like that. It's really triangular and really, really sharp. And this rises near the foothills of that mountain, comes all the way down here, getting wider and deeper and slower as it approaches the sea. And it finally ends up in the Adriatic and in an enormous delta. But this is one of the places we're going to look at. But while we looking at it, we're going to need a few of our basic instruments. Not exactly high tech. Look, I'll show you. This is the first one. Now, this here is not exactly a Zeiss or a Leica. You're not going to pay thousands of euros for this. This cost me about 150 euros about 8 years, it cost my wife about 150 euros 8 years ago. Now this one, the magnification is 10 by 42. 10 is the first number. That tells you how much it expands the image. And so it's okay for being in the woods and places like this. If you're going to go to the sea or big lakes or enormous plains, well, you're going to need greater magnification. Otherwise, you won't really see very much. And for that, probably a telescope would be the best thing. But anyway, this is what I have at the moment. It's a lesser investment, but it really does help me. Now, the other thing that we can work on as well is we need is a book to help with identification. What do you do? How can you identify birds? Well, what you need to do is you need to get one of these. Now this is just look at it, it's really battered. Very, very loved this book. This book has been underwater, this book has been in the sun, this book has been in sand, it's been lost and found. It's beautiful. It's a Collins, and the Collins Bird Guide is one of the greatest you can find, but there are others available. And it's great because what information does it give you? Well, it gives you information on the bird. There are some pictures of the bird. You've got information on the habits of the bird, written descriptions, the songs of the bird, where you find it, and the kind of habitat. So it's tremendous. And also, for map lovers, and lots of people love maps, you've got maps of the breeding distribution, so you know where that bird breeds, and you know where it winters, and that's important because birds cross international frontiers. And this book reflects that because this is Europe, but not just Europe. You've got parts, the adjoining parts of Asia, and you've got parts of North Africa. So you've got this biological, ecological region included in this book. So some incredible birds there. Now, the question is, how do you use this book? Now, I could go along and say, oh, what's that? And look at it, I could do that. But what I suspect you should do is first of all start looking at the birds near where you live. Look at the birds in your street, look at the birds in the local park. Go to the river, go to the nearest woodland and have a look and identify the simple, common birds first. And they will be your reference points. And then you can always check in the book, have a look to confirm your identification, and not only that, but look at the other birds in the family, because by looking at the family you start to understand what they have in common. And in this way, when you see those other birds, you're ready for them. You've already seen the pictures. You're looking for them. You're desperate to see those birds. And this book will help you because it is a work of art. The illustrations are really, really beautiful. Looking at the things you hope to see and then looking at where you can find them and going and finding the birds. We'll be talking about that in more detail later on. Well, here we are back at the river and things are starting to happen. And just down there, a common tern has just dived into the water and caught a fish. And a cormorant is flying overhead. Now, common tern first. Common tern looks like a gull. It's predominantly white with a black cap, has a long pointed bill, but it's very delicate. It has long, narrow, pointed wings, and it gives this bird incredible powers of flight. It can dive down and pick insects or fish from the water. The cormorant has just flown down there. We all know a cormorant. A cormorant is a big black bird that stands by the sea on beaches and on branches with its wings out to dry. Flying over there, there is a heron, and we just heard a few moments ago the songs of golden oriole. A golden oriole, a beautiful fluty call that says its name, oriole, a little bit like that anyway. We saw 3 of those flying over there in the woodlands. Just a moment ago, a buzzard flew over. A buzzard is the most common raptor bird of prey in Europe. It's medium size. It's got a wingspan of about over a metre, but it's not a huge bird, but it can look very big against an empty sky. Now that flies over, it's brown and white in particular. It's very moth-like. The wings are broad. The head is stubby. The tail is relatively short, so it is in some ways a bit like a moth flying. We've also heard, and we will hear today, lots of nightingales. We'll hear their pulsing song. And remember, this is what we need to listen for when we're listening to songs. We need to listen to the volume. Is it a loud song? do we have to strain to hear it?
We need to think about the pitch and the speed of the song.
And we need to actually think about the style of the song. How would we describe it? And the nightingale is all about power. We can hear it there. It starts with whistles and warbles, and these increase in crescendo and in tempo, and then there's an explosion of notes at the end. We've heard here in these bushes by our side, we've got these white poplars that Alberto described the other day. We've got thickets of oak, and in those we've got small birds like great tit, very, very common bird you can see also in your town park, in your garden if you've got a garden, or even on your balcony if you've got plants on your balcony. So we've also heard another member of that family. It's not really in the family. The English name is long-tailed tit, although it's not really related to the tits. And this is a tiny little bird. It's like a ball, little white ball, tinges of pink on it, and it's got a long tail. The tail is about the same length as the body, and these are moving through the vegetation. But note, one thing is here, we've got to listen to the sounds, we've got to listen to the songs, because now that the trees are fully in leaf, it's really difficult to see the birds. They are busy looking for food, they don't want to be caught by predators, they've got to get back to their nest with the food for their chicks to survive. That is the important thing for them. Now, another thing we'll see on this river, a very common bird everywhere on rivers, is the mallard. Now, we had a few under the bank here. They're a common duck. The head of the male is a glossy bottle green. It's very beautiful in the sun. When the light falls on the bird's head, in some directions it can look green. If you look from the other side, the same bird seems to have a purple head. It's absolutely amazing to see. And then the rest of it, you can see that when the wings open, you've got mirrors, which are bands of coloured feathers. In the mallard, they are a violet colour. The female, of course, is much less attractive, much less apparent, because the female's job is to sit on the nest and to be camouflaged among the leaves and the vegetation so as not to attract the predators. We can just hear a little bubbly call of a bee-eater. Now, a bee-eater likes to nest along rivers like this, and you can see behind me probably there's a big bank, a cliff of sand, and they make burrows inside, a bit like a kingfisher. Now, the bee-eater is an incredible bird to see. When people see a bee-eater through their binoculars for the first time, it's as if the scales had fallen from their eyes, because it is incredible. It's got a yellow face, it's got a beautiful bluey green underparts, and breast and underparts. It's got brown feathers on the back, lovely rusty reddy brown feathers. It is a beautiful, beautiful bird. And yet, from a distance, in the air, it looks like a starling, which is very common. It's over there. The bee-eater is flying over there. You could hear the call. It's looking for insects. It's going to catch butterflies. It's going to catch bees. It's going to catch large insects. Now, the bee-eater comes back from its wintering grounds. It comes back a little bit later. It doesn't come back in April. It comes back in May. And it comes back in May because before that, there aren't enough insects, big insects, for it to feed its young. We hope to see as well a few little waders on these islands of gravel. We may see them later on the river.
One of these here is
Are little ringed plover. Now, little ringed plover, they're the kind of birds you see near the sea, but these often live inland on rivers like this. And they're basically small birds about that size,
a bit smaller than
a starling or a blackbird probably. The backs are brown, the underside is white, and their carriage, the way they hold themselves, is more or less horizontal. Not like a bird perched vertically, it's something like that. And they run along the gravel looking for insects.
the little ringed plover is recognized by its pale legs.
And it has a gold ring around the eye. The beak is not very long, it's a little bit stubby. So these are small birds that we might see. And here is something really, really beautiful. It's a dead tree. Now, conventional wisdom says that dead trees have to be cut down, but here, this dead tree is one of the richest parts of the ecosystem. This is the sort of place where birds that need a view of the countryside around will sit. You get birds of prey, you get buzzards, you get kestrels and other birds here. And we've just seen, right at the top, we've seen a spotted flycatcher, which flies out and catches insects and then often returns to the same branch. But if you look at this tree, what's wonderful about it also is that the bark is peeling off it. There are birds that make their nest between the trunk and the bark. They creep up in between them and there they can raise their young. And also you look where branches have fallen off the tree, you've got little holes which are perfect, ready-made nesting sites for blue tits and other birds like that. And this is a really amazing landscape because this little patch of water here is part of La Lanca di San Michele. And what this is this was once part of the River Po, which is over there. It was a very, very convoluted meander. And then what happened was the river changed course and cut off that loop of water, has left it high and dry. So this is destined, if it's left alone, to eventually fill up with sediment, with vegetation. It will no longer exist, so it needs to be managed to remain. And it's important because it's full of amphibians. I mean, we've just heard just now marsh frogs, that very, very characteristic sound. Over there, we've got a fantastic landscape because we've got land which is very, very wet, very, very humid. It looks like a swamp. It looks like, to me, I've never been to the Everglades, but it could almost be something like that. Lots of really tall trees, many of them dead, many of them festooned with creepers, lianas and other things. And because the soil is incredibly fertile, so you can see there are these masses of nettles which grow in very, very fertile soil, and other creeping plants like white bryony. If you look at this water here, the quality of the water is very, very good. It's very, very clean. It's good for dragonflies. It's a little bit cool at the moment, so we're not going to see them yet. Maybe later in the day when the sun comes out over here. But all of these trees over here, this mass profusion of hornbeam, of white willows, white poplars, look at those. And again, the tree over there behind me, there's a tree that's bare at the top, it's lost its leaves. Again, we've just seen bee-eaters perching on that. Bee-eaters breed in the quarry over there, but they come here to search for insects because it's rich. There's a huge biomass of leaves and vegetation and trees and shrubs and growing things. And if we look down here, we've got some interesting aquatic plants as well. I have no idea what that one is, but I'm going to ask the guys to take a photograph so I can identify it later. We're having a fantastic time. We've seen quite a few birds since our last report. We've seen, for example, we saw a little egret down by the side of the river, and then flying over the poplars by the river, we saw two sparrowhawks, small predators. After that, there were other things too. We had a great crested grebe by the bend in the river that was diving for fish, so we know there are fish in here. Then there was a coot, another water bird. Oh yes, there were three great spotted woodpeckers. I almost forgot those. Just flying over, we've got two little ring plovers, which are some of the waders that I mentioned earlier. And this is definitely a good spot because just now we heard the purring of turtle doves from the scrub by the riverside. So those are some really, really good sightings. We're really delighted with what we're seeing today. Isn't this brilliant? I mean, just look at this scenery. Just look at how much you can immerse yourself in the landscape. And, you know, this is the answer to the question. The question is this: why does anybody become a bird watcher? Why would you do it? First of all, there's usually somebody in your life who's shown you, has given you, opened a window into this world. Or maybe you've seen something the first time you've seen a robin or a blackbird. But anyway, let's face it, isn't this a perfect way to get away from the city, to get away from the noise and the stress of the town, and actually do something like this? What the psychologists call flow. Flow is a total dedication to something. It's when you're playing the piano, it's when you're focusing on a mathematical problem, it's when you're doing embroidery, where you are totally focused on that activity and that alone. And you know, let's face it, it's hardly an expensive activity. Once you have your binoculars, once you have your book, all you're doing is walking and being in beautiful places, by rivers, on the beach, in your town. It can be competitive as well, to be honest, because you know, bird watchers are not some kind of nerd. Bird watchers are everything. They're just like engineers, they're just like footballers, they're just like artists, they're just like logistics experts or managers or shop assistants. They're people and they're all different, but we all have this urge to do better. And you know, there's that competitive instinct when you have a list. Every year you have a list. You have a list for your country, you have a bird list for your province, you have a bird list for your city. And every year, January the 1st, you wake up and you think, wow, let's see if I can do better than I did last year. Let's see if I can see more species. And you know, there's just one more thing. And my wife said this to me. She said, you know, for you, bird watching is your meditation. And to be honest, it is, because you know what we're doing when we're bird watching? We're going back to our past, to our ancestral past, when man was in contact and had to read his environment, because he had to know where to find food. He had to know what fruits he could eat. He had to know when the birds migrated and when he could trap them. He had to know how to avoid predators that might kill him. So by doing this immersion, in a way we're going back into history. We're doing something primordial, primeval. We're going back to our roots every time we go out with our binoculars. Well, now it's goodbye observation cabin, goodbye reserve. You know, we've come to the end now of our very short evening and early morning expedition here. It's been wonderful to have you with us. It's been lovely to share these beautiful things with you. We hope that you will enjoy them. And now, I suppose another question is, where do you go from here? Well, if you can get your book, if you can get your binoculars, maybe also you can get a book, Where to Watch Birds in Your Country, wherever it is, where to watch birds in Italy, where to watch birds in Germany, to help. But what you need to do, I think, then, is to make friends and to increase your knowledge. Talk to people who know more than you do. So join your local bird club, go on excursions with them, look at what you can see, find out the places near you where you can see the best birds and develop your skills. And maybe from an ecological point of view, you want to do more. You may want to keep your records very carefully. You may want to submit them. You may want to use those records to defend a place that is in danger of development. So join WWF, join Legambiente, join any organisation that in some way helps you to make a contribution to protecting this beautiful earth that we inhabit. Be prepared to campaign if that is what you want to do. This is a way you can do something really, really positive. Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure to be with you. Let's hope that we meet up again and perhaps we'll talk more about this wonderful hobby, birdwatching. Thank you.